Hello and welcome to the Car Care Nut channel, and let's talk about 5 things you did not know about your modern Toyota. And before we get started, let us clarify what a modern Toyota is. Let's say 2015 all the way up. This is not an exact number, some of them will be a little bit earlier, but let's talk 2015 all the way up. Let's define that as the modern, and with that, let's get started with the first one right after this. Let's start with the first one, which is cruise control. See, most of the modern Toyotas and the newest ones, adaptive cruise control have become standard. And most folks really like it, works great, but some actually do not. And then some that do like it, when it gets rainy, snowy outside, all of a sudden it deactivates and now it tells you the sensors are dirty. Well, you clean them, two miles later, they're dirty again. So what do you do in that case? Well, did you know that Toyota's adaptive cruise control does have a mode where you can actually switch it to non-adaptive cruise control. And it is very, very simple. It's so simple that most people don't even know about it. So you're driving in your normal adaptive cruise control. You want to switch it. You're going to turn it on, and then you're going to press and hold the cruise control on-off button until it switches. Usually within 3 seconds of holding that button, it'll switch to regular cruise control. Good old-fashioned 1995 cruise control. You set it, it'll go until the end. There's no stopping. If you want to switch it back, you either hold it, press and hold it, or just turn it off, turn it back on, and it'll go back to adaptive. This is really useful if you're driving in bad conditions. Adaptive cruise control is one of the coolest features ever to come to cars, and it's really useful, and they've gotten so good lately that they really work. But there's always conditions where it's snowy, it is rainy, although you don't want to engage cruise control in snowy conditions, but heavy rain, heavy mud, whatever the case may be, and all of a sudden the sensors start disconnecting, or if you have a problem with the system, let's say until you get it serviced, you're traveling and you do need some cruise control, well, you can switch the regular one, at least enjoy it. I mean, we drove cars without adaptive cruise control for a very long time. We never had issues, but it's nice to have that adaptive control, but now you know that you can switch back and forth. Let's talk about the second one, which has to do with some old recalls. I feel like it was yesterday when we were going through that phase, but it's been a minute now. But we're not going to talk about the recalls themselves. We're going to talk kind of about the aftermath of those and a couple things you don't know about. There's something called brake stop technology that was added sometime around 2010, 2011. It kind of went in quietly into all Toyota models and Lexus. So what happens if you press the gas pedal and the brake at the same time? Most people assume that's the best way to do a burnout. That's what car guys would think, and other people will brake torque, whatnot. But if you're doing that at any higher speeds, like let's say over 20, 25 miles an hour, you will actually override the gas pedal. The car will disengage the gas pedal completely and will only allow the brake to go. But if you do it at a standstill, you can do it. Because the first thing you're going to do after watching this video, you're going to go try it and say, well, it doesn't work. No, that's not how it's supposed to work. You need to be at speed for it to actually work. And the reason for that is, should the gas pedal get stuck on the floor mat and you're driving and all of a sudden the car takes off, you panic, you slam on the brakes, it's actually going to electronically bypass the gas pedal, because all these cars are throttle by wire. It's just going to ignore the input from the throttle pedal, and it's only going to let you brake. Life is wonderful, but as soon as you let go of the brake, it might take off again. So you might want to keep it on the brake until you shut off the car, then we go. Speaking of shutting off the car, if, again, same scenario, car takes off because the pedal got stuck on the floor mat, which is something happened a lot at some point. If you press the start button 3 times very rapidly, it'll actually shut off the engine. Most people don't know about this, and that was something added on later. According to some publications, it's right around 2010, but let's play it safe, 2011, 12 and up. If you press the start button 3 times while you are driving, though, not stopped, you just hit it once, it'll shut off. Even if you're driving at higher speeds, you press the start button rapidly 3 times, it'll shut off. The idea of that is, car takes off and your pedal got stuck in the floor mat, and the 7 floor mats that you have, which by the way, don't leave more than 1 floor mat in your car, just for general safety reasons. If that happens, the first thing people will do is start putting the start button to shut off the car. So they figured, let's do that feature, because in no other circumstances will you be pressing the start button repeatedly. If you have a key, you're just going to do this to the key and shut off the car. But even though it's a panic moment, and I understand, when we panic, we don't think straight. But here's a suggestion. If that ever happens, put your car in neutral. That's a much easier. We'll let the engine rev up, it'll be fine. But that's a better solution. But if you need to, just panic on the start button and it'll shut off. Let's talk about some customizations that most people are not familiar with. Toyotas usually, and even Lexus included, they're very conservative on their electronics. They don't have fancy features and fancy this, and this can be completely customized. They just keep things simple. That's why some of their cars are really reliable, because they just keep it simple. They don't overcomplicate things. However, modern Toyotas added some customizations which were very simple to add, and they are last to the bunch to add them. Some of the common customizations that I see customers ask about all the time are the number of flashes for the lane change. So the lane changes, you hit the turn signal just a little bit, move it, it'll flash a certain number of times for you to just change lanes, and it'll automatically cancel. That is a very nice feature. But did you know that in modern Toyotas you can actually change the number of these flashes from 3, 5, 7. Now the very newest ones, they finally started to add it where you can change it in the infotainment screen. But the mid ones, the ones that are modern but not completely modern, you cannot do that. You have to go with a scan tool and change that. You can ask your dealership to do that. You have a shop you know has a capable scan tool. They can actually customize that 3, 5, or 7 flashes. Most places won't charge for the stuff like this. However, if you're just coming in for that, they might charge you a small fee. Them scan tools are very, very expensive. Now, the second thing is that you can customize that is very common for folks to ask about is the seatbelt chime. Now, this should not be a reason for you not to wear your seatbelt. I just have to say that seatbelts save lives, folks, and you should always put your seatbelt on. But the reason you may want to cancel the chime of the seatbelt, you're a contractor, you put stuff on your passenger seat. See, the passenger seat won't alert you about a seatbelt until you put weight on it, and until you put significant weight on it. But if you have tools, equipment, whatever the case may be, and you always put them in the passenger seat, well, the thing will always be beeping at you, thinking there's a passenger in the seat, and it's beeping continuously. There is an option to turn it off. That beep only. It'll still flash the light, but at least it's not beeping and annoying you, and you have to pull the seatbelt and buckle it in for no reason, because there's no passenger, there's just items. So you can turn off the chime. Again, this one is not available as an option through the infotainment system. This can be done with a dealership scan tool, or some very capable scan tools can also do these customizations. And then one more customization that is very commonly asked about: auto window down. So if you press and hold the unlock button on your remote, the windows will come down, the sunroof will open, and life is wonderful. All German cars do that. People love that. German cars will also do the lock to put everything up and close it. But Toyotas, for reasons beyond me, they have that feature, but it's disabled by default. I don't know why it is disabled by default, but it is. But you can turn it on cars that are equipped. Now, cars that are equipped is a pretty vague list, because Toyota actually doesn't list which cars are equipped. You just kind of have to go in and see. But cars that are equipped, you can enable this feature. It's a very nice feature. Really hot summer day, before you walk up to your car, just hold the unlock button on your remote and hold it. The windows will come down, you get some airflow before you get in the car. It's a nice feature. Now, not all models, actually majority of them, can only lower them but not raise them. Some Lexus models, especially the higher end ones, you can raise them as well. But it is an option that is by default turned off. So again, you need a customization scan tool to take care of that and turn it on. The next one most Toyota owners will know about, but I still get that question at the shop, so I'm going to mention it here. Remote starters. Folks, many modern Toyotas have a remote starter built into them from the factory. Now, we're not going to get into that whole subscription deal, which I don't even understand what they're on about, because their cars have subscriptions expired and they still work, so we're not going to get there. But remote starter. This is a point actually against Toyota, and the truth have to be said. Why don't you have a dedicated start button, remote start button on your remotes is beyond me. And why the reason it's so complicated? Well, if you take your remote and press lock, and then the third one, press lock and hold it, the car will actually remote start. Very kind of ancient remote start system. You are limited by the very short range of the remote, and most of the time it'll take you 2-3 tries to get it, but they are equipped with these, and I don't understand why don't they do it like other manufacturers where you have a single button, you press and hold it, the car will remote start, and we don't have to do the dance with the lock 3 times and all that, but it is there from the factory. You can use it and it works great. There's no modifications required or whatnot. Of course, the newest ones, you have a subscription where you can get the app and you can do it from your phone and all that. That's all nice, but you also have it on your remote. I want to make sure everybody knows that. And the last one is radios or infotainment systems. See, Toyota has some of the most conservative, most old school radios ever. I mean, the newest one is glitchy and old, and it just, when you get into other manufacturers' cars, it just feels like this is very outdated. But that's how Toyota is. They're conservative with their stuff. But here's something you need to know about radios. Did you know that they're actually classified as model year AB generation? And that's how you classify them. So if you go right now and buy a 2024 Toyota Tundra, did you know that you have a 21 model year infotainment system? This is a very confusing and very strange kind of labeling system, and it goes back to the year that infotainment system was introduced, not the year that the model started. I hope that makes sense. 21 model year infotainment system, the one you see in the Tundra, now it's slowly rolling into all other cars and into Lexus, and they're very proud of it. It actually came out in 21. But if you go to 21, not all 21 models has it, and this is where the confusion is. They're talking about the infotainment system when it came out, not the year of the cars. This gets extremely confusing for folks to understand, wait, why do I not have this system? Why does this model has this? It has to do when the infotainment system came out. And the biggest thing that Toyota ruined for everyone, starting right around 2018, was a tiny little number called faceplate ID number that you see on every single Toyota radio for as far as I remember, maybe until we get to like the 90s. But as far as I remember, we had the faceplate ID number. It was a distinct, undistinguishable number to identify what exact radio you have. You have this radio, you take this faceplate ID, you go on eBay, you put this faceplate ID, you find exactly the same one, it will work because it's exactly the same radio. Well, in 2018, they decided to cancel the best thing they had about their radio. They don't have faceplate IDs anymore, and that is something you should know about. If you're going to replace your radio, be very careful, because sometimes, and this is where things get a lot confusing, and this is what you need to be careful with Toyota radios. It's the exact same radio, but it's a different manufacturer. And if you look at the part numbers, they're the same part number, but the faceplate ID used to be different, because this one has a little bit different option than this one, but now we don't have it. So going with the modern ones, especially 18 and up, be extremely careful with the radio replacements, because you could easily get the wrong one. And if you ask, well, how do I know version or model number of the radio screen? You go to About and you find the actual model number, and that's what you go by. So if you're screen is destroyed and you can't get to it, things will get a little tricky with the used market stuff. So be careful with the radios. And folks, before we wrap up the video, I will mention 2 additional stuff for you rapidly here. The first one is modern Toyotas, and this started with hybrids, and now it's slowly actually rolling to other models. If you leave the car unattended, just parked idling, it'll actually display a message: we're going to shut off the car in an hour. They did that to a response to, I think it was a single or 2 cases where an owner of a hybrid left the car in the garage, didn't notice that the car was on, and it actually stayed in the garage, and that could create a dangerous situation because the engine could come on and now you have a closed garage in your home and you're asleep and the car is just running. That's really dangerous. So they made a mode where if there's inactivity, you're not opening doors, you're not operating a radio, you're not doing anything, your car is just sitting there on, it'll start a timer 1 hour, it'll automatically shut off the car unless you change, like it'll display a prompt: do you want to cancel this feature or you want to shut off after an hour? Unless you intentionally push no, don't turn it off after an hour, it'll actually shut off the car after an hour. And the second thing is the mute button. Mysteriously at some point it disappeared from Toyota models. If your steering wheel has a mode button that changes the mode of the radio, you can actually press and hold it, it'll mute the radio. For reasons beyond me, I guess they ran out of ink or something of that nature. It used to, in the older models, say mute. If you press and hold for 3 seconds for mute, well, they took that out, but it still works the same way. Press and hold that mode button, it'll actually mute the radio, but they don't say it on it anymore, and most folks don't know about that. Folks, these are some tips that I hope you know about them now for your modern Toyotas, and I hope you are enjoying your Toyota and Lexus, and you know a little bit more about them after this video. Folks, I hope this video was helpful and informative. I hope you learned something new. If you like it, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing to the channel. Check out some other videos. Until the next video, folks, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and you have yourself a wonderful day.